Hello, welcome to another episode of B2B Revenue Leaders. I'm your host, Dustin. Today I have Amelia Taylor from regie.ai. Amelia, how's it going?
Hello. I am super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. This is like a dream because I've been wanting to be one of the first females to be on a podcast. So thank you for having me and letting me do that.
For sure. You are officially the first female on the show.
I know.
This is going to be episode 3. So
Amazing.
looking forward to this one. I like the topic. We're going to bounce around a bit. But before we do, Reggie looks super interesting. So I'd love to hear, for our listeners, what is it?
Yeah. So Reggie's a game changer, first and foremost. And so Reggie is your all-in-one content creation platform for modern go-to-market teams. So full cycle from your outbound motion to your inbound leads to the follow-ups that, those AEs are pushing out, trying to get, especially in the quarter right now and fiscal years coming up, all that, to event follow-ups, then your CS, all of that. So supports the entire sales cycle. And then you've got your content libraries where you're able to kind of store different kinds of information for your team to share across the board. So we, over here at Reggie, will work off of a 3P methodology. So it's your persona that we'll focus on, and then the value prop, and then the pain point. So you can insert different ones and plug and play. It's pretty fun to see what Reggie will spit out, because it'll do about 80% of the work for you. So you still have that human touch of where you can go in, personalize, and pivot to where you want it to be, how specifically for an individual or that persona. Then you can change the tone of it. So it'll write your sequence within, minutes instead of hours, days, whatever it may be for certain teams. Um, but you'll put, you can change the tone, which I like to put witty and professional. So it has a little bit of fun with it. And then, keywords, all of that, but it makes sure that like all the boxes are checked. Everything is, gender inclusion, diversity, all of that is even checked, which is really cool that it's keeping up with all of the things that are very, you know, they're super honed in on right now within the market and sales and this industry that we're in. So LinkedIn, you hear it all the time. So it's a really cool platform. There's so much you could do in it. 25 different language translations too. So side note, I was writing in German the other day and I don't know a thing about it. And I was like, okay, let's just see how far we can go. And LinkedIn follow-ups or connection messages, it'll write in the tone of whoever you're reaching out to based off of pulling their information and work history and their about sections. It'll do like a disc assessment to show you that they're like a high D, high I, like I am. Best way to approach this person, so it's really cool how granular it can get and how crazy AI can get, right? That's a big thing right now. How advanced AI is making everything,
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting and a little terrifying, depending on how you
right?
look at AI. It's a little bit of both for sure. That's interesting though that it actually reads, people's bio and their posts and gets a feel for who they are. Aside from that, and the LinkedIn follows, what's your go-to favorite way to use it, kind of in your day to day?
Mine is definitely with LinkedIn posts, but having the content library where I can store my thoughts. So I can store different ideas that I have or different almost templates that I can use that I can with whatever's going on. So it's kind of a framework I can work off of within the content library. Then I can go in, okay, great. I'm not going to say in these unprecedented times, email, right? But I can put what's going on. Here's a keyword that I want to update this. Here's how I want to ensure that this is best practices. So it'll be best practices based on like Gong, Salesloft, Outreach, and it'll constantly on the back end be enhancing. So that's how the every golf content is created. But I would say definitely because my thoughts will go everywhere. I like to put things in my notes in my phone. So I'll dictate things, but I learned my phone doesn't love my voice. So it's kind of this I have to decipher half of the things I say. So now I've got like a stored place to keep all my thoughts where I can pass things along then create things from it. There's a Chrome extension, which is really wild, where it'll pull from different social platforms and you can gather, okay, this person loves to cook because they just tweeted about it. So it'll do the hyper personalization, then the relevancy. So, like, you probably have made the best meal of my life. Somebody tweeted that, right? I made the best meal of my life last night. Took forever though. You you relate that to writing sales sequences. It'll go together and it's like, hey, so I realize that cooking the best meal of your life and writing sales sequences both can take up a ton of your time, right? So that's why we created Reggie. So it'll just go in alignment with who that person is and what their passions are, because the open rate and reply rate enhance dramatically.
Nice. No, I'm gonna have to play around with
Yes.
that later.
Good play.
Because
Right.
yeah, my thing is always finding that starting point, like staring at a blank post box
Yeah.
just sucks and try to start from there. Sometimes you need that little nudge, right? Um,
Exactly.
so creating content, obviously, big part of your job. I don't know if I mentioned it up front, but you're in strategic sales and evangelism. W- This is a hard thing to define and give your definition, but let's give your take of what is evangelism.
Evangelism is showing up where your buyers live and being that point of contact, not just the face of a company, because I think that it goes so much more in depth than that. Do you have to have a plethora of product knowledge? Not necessarily, but you have to be someone that's trustworthy, that people like you enough to want to work with you and your organization, that you pique interest, and that you also are able to clearly match, okay, this person is, you gotta have the IQ of saying, okay, this person is sharing this within this community, which I say community, that's a lot of where I will meet people is really throughout different Slack communities or Discord groups or not necessarily LinkedIn groups, but that's, another part of it too, is really wherever your buyers live. And it then matching, okay, here's something they're asking. There's clearly a pain here, identifying that and simply helping. Hey, let's bridge this gap of what's going on. Just let's chat. And then connecting, being that connective tissue to bridge the gap between, okay, this kind of like a marketing lead sort of thing that I'm getting because it's inbound to a degree, but it's very much so sales outreach because they didn't come to me, but I'm warming it up enough for it to be past to sales in a way that I've already got so much information, but there's self attribution to the evangelist role. So there's a lot of demand gen that happens within it, naturally. And then there's a lot of social aspects to it that you're showing up in social platforms in different ways. Um, break down what evangelism is. Evangelism is spreading the good word. That's what it means. So the definition of that, you know, in totality, you're spreading the word of what your organization does where your buyers live.
Yeah, no, I like. Thanks for simplifying that definition at the
I don't think that
end.
was
For a lot of
simplified, but
the end was the last sentence or two, you nailed it and gave a very concise definition, which I think is good for listeners because we're seeing evangelism pop up in titles, and you're even seeing like dark social pop up as a title now, and
right.
you're seeing all this happen. I think a lot of people look at that and wonder, what does this person actually do? Right. So
And you've had to clarify multiple times when I have shared dark social, that word in general, this is not dark web. They're totally opposite because people are like, what is this girl doing in the dark web? Like, what are you talking about? But it is so dark social can go as far as it being, okay, you are reaching out to this person via text, or you're reaching out to them in Slack groups, you're doing a huddle, anything that's the it, unorthodox way of doing it. Let's call it dark social.
yeah, and I like how you mentioned the whole, self-reported attribution, trying to figure out where buyers come from, because it's not as simple as it was back in the day where, you would go to the vendor's website, or maybe they didn't even have a website, and you call them and you're like, that's
Yes.
found you in the yellow pages or whatever. It was super direct. Now it can be hard to attribute to evangelism, I think. So is that something you're doing over at Reggie to figure out, like, what is the impact here? How do we measure it?
For sure. That is literally a work in progress as we speak. And I have consulted with some of the like top evangelists out there because tried and true, they know what they're doing because this has really been brought about by some of these names that we all know that have that dark social or that evangelist title within their headline and just explaining it. So I've chatted with them trying to figure out, okay, how do you attribute a specific event or a podcast that you're on or a webinar, all of those things. How do you ensure that they're not in your CRM already? The leads that do come in when you do have that, list of attendees, great. Here's a targeted list that we can go, I can pass to an SDR, they can go after, we can get ensure it's, ICP, all of that. But how do you make sure that it's SQL, MQL, there's a lot that goes into it. So when you look at things in totality, okay, let's break it all down. There's different kinds of programs that you can do within evangelism to ensure that there's other people speaking on your behalf when you're not in the room too. So there's like the influencer marketing as well.
Mhm.
So there's the lead routing, of course, that you can do because that would fall under marketing. There's the influencers who can speak on your behalf when you're not there, or the leaders who have the pen in hand who are going to sign for your product. It can be where there's quote unquote spreading the good word of what you do, your advisors. I think that's a big miss that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of is leveraging that. But there has to be that lead routing that field right there, the drop down. How did you hear about us? There has to be that, or else there's going to be so much crossover and confusion. The sales and marketing will never be aligned. And I think a lot of what evangelism is trying to do is bridge that gap.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point because as you're describing the role, it sounds like sales, it sounds like marketing,
Mhm.
it's a bit of both, right? So, what role, how does evangelism help pull sales and marketing together?
I think it's a lot to do with making sure that things are qualified when you are reaching out because i- if things are coming in through marketing, right, it could just be someone who just wants to take a look. Say it's a webinar lead. Nobody really loves it. Somebody did a post about that, I think today or yesterday, about nobody loves webinar leads. Nobody really wants to take them. What do you do with them? And I'm like, no, you do take them because that's how you build champion relationships within organizations. So I think when you shift it, there's the sales aspect in that regard of when there are the leads that you are seeing or low hanging fruit or things that people that you know within your network, because I think if you really want to hone in on this evangelist motion and this upward trajectory of we're going to grow with having an evangelist on board within our organization, you have to tap into your network and it has to be decent enough for there to be people who are going to help build you up, build a credibility of the organization, of what you're doing, and you become not just, like I said, not just the face of the company, but you are someone that somebody could go to and say, "Hey, can we just chat? Like, can I learn more?" Instead of their peer, where they go and they say, "Should I buy this?" or do the PLG motion, where the buyer, those sellers, I mean, are totally cut out. It's the selling motion is no more. So it's ensuring that selling motion stays secure because you can still have PLG. That's great. That goes into marketing. Then, because you're kind of routing people that way and also visit the website, all of that with your attribution, then also making sure that sales has that attribution of, okay, I brought this in for you because this is a really hot lead. And this person is like, hey, we need this right now. Or we've got a team of 100 SDRs and literally we're using like COVID messaging. Can you help? So it's like, whoa, 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 back it up. Yes, absolutely. You need to talk to somebody. Let's not sign you up by yourself. Like, I got your back. Let me hold your hand as a partner through this, opposed to being a seller for a marketer. It's really just being that partner that, like I said, the connected tissue with the buyer too.
Yeah, I want to go into the webinar lead thing for a sec too, because I think that one's super interesting because I get
Mhm.
both sides. Like my team currently, so my background was sales, then it was marketing, now it's both. So like my team right now is marketing
Okay.
and sales. Um, and I get marketing saying, let's get a webinar, we'll get 1,000 people. These are all leads, kind of in quotes, right? And then
Okay.
the old play is sales goes and burns them by pitching them and saying, hey, come buy the product. You went to our webinar. And then sales hates marketing, marketing hates sales. The old story in time when
Mhm.
it comes to this.
The oldest story in time. Once upon a time. Yep. We'll tell our kids that one day.
Yeah. And, obviously it doesn't work. So I agree webinar leads can be good depending on how you handle them. So what would your approach be there? Like, webinar 200, totally great. ICP people come in. What do
Mhm.
you do after that?
So, who are the people who know how to sell into enterprise? Who are the people who know how to sell SMB? Who, if it's broken up into that, there's the mid market, there's teams like that, segment it off that way. And then there has to be not this whole CTA that you're going after. It's not an approach of we're going to have this actionable plan of you're booking and we're going to give you a full on demo and you're going to buy and boom. Yeah, sure, you're going to get these one off ones that are buyer now, but you're also going to have the people who are just their reps just trying to get better because they don't have the leadership in place necessarily. This taught them how to even leverage the tools that they have in their toolbox, which that's a whole nother topic that could dive into for days, but I'll save that one. But with the webinar leads, marketing shows up with these. That's great. Distributes to sales. There's an inbound team. Sure, let that go there. I think that's a great place to start. But the messaging has to be in sync with inbound, outbound, wherever it goes, whoever is targeting you. If it's, even if it's ICP, great, segment it off, even if it's more granular, VP of sales, business development director, whatever it is, and tailor it to them and ask simply why. Like, why did you attend? Like, what was the reasoning? Because clearly, if they attended, there's some sort of solution they're looking for because there's some kind of problem. So if you think of it that way, simplify your messaging into, hey, saw you in the webinar. Like, what made you want to hop on and learn? And
Yeah.
I think that less is more when it comes to webinar leads with the messaging.
Yeah. I think that's good follow up for kind of any non high intent hand raiser lead,
Yeah.
right?
Hand raisers, great. Yeah, great
Yeah.
point on
Because like if you try to take that approach of, and I hate getting these emails after a webinar where it's, thanks for attending. Here's my key takeaways. Want to hop on a call and discuss them? Like I know that's a sales call.
that.
I'm probably not going to fall for it. Uh,
It's automated. Yep.
yeah, but if it is that general why, or like if there's legit curiosity, then they're trying to start a conversation, I'm more
Mhm.
likely to respond. And I think we've all just been conditioned with like those hidden kind of veiled pitches. I feel
Mhm.
like my spidey sense goes off and I just, nope, not going near that today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's so true. And then, when you're in a sequence and when you're not, because if you jump on someone's website or something within 30 minutes, there's probably a 90% chance you're getting an email saying,
Yeah.
hey, is your team doing this today? Because this is what we do and this is how we can help you. And I had someone reach out to me recently that was asking me about how if my team needed content creation. And so I responded because I've got a folder of bad outreach. Literally, it's bad outreach. So I'll keep things because I'm like, one, these are people who need help. So I can look at what they're sending out because it'll be repetitive or it'll have a pretty aggressive ending to it of like, clearly this isn't an initiative for you. Well, no, you're making an assumption here. So bad messaging. And also, or if it goes in my junk or spam, I know this is a deliverability problem. Or if they're referencing my old, previous companies, stuff like that I've been a part of, I'll keep those because I can help those people. I think that's evangelism too, is the helping portion of responding to those, bringing the awareness of, hey, did you know this is landing in your spam? Hey, did you know this is not the way to do it and there's a better way? And bringing this information to them because people don't know what they don't know. I don't know and I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And it's easy to assume that we know things when we don't. And when reps aren't equipped in with the insights and knowledge of knowing how to do things that are going to be, revenue generating by their messaging being relevant and personalized, not hyper personalized, because don't be the weirdo that does things that are like way too aggressively personalized. And if it's actually solving a problem where they want to respond, like, would you respond to the message? Is what I always like to think. Then you go and help.
So I think that's a good way to look at it too. Is this is easier for sure if you're the buyer, right? So like we
Yeah.
both sell to sales and marketing type people, and we're sales and
Mhm.
marketing people, so we can look at it and say, would I respond to this? Probably harder if I was selling to cybersecurity and it's like a
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
IT head of IT, and I'm trying to figure out if the message resonates. But I do think that's a good test, like whether it's creating ads, creating content, emails, anything. Would this stop me from scrolling? Would I actually open and read this or delete it?
Right.
And I'm guilty of this where a lot of times I'll create something, write something, and then I do that test. I'm like, this is garbage. Like
Yeah.
this is not good outreach. So you kind of have to consciously think of that.
You really do. I mean, I've like post-it notes galore on my desk because if I just have to have these constant reminders of specific things. Like I'll get overwhelmed easily by things. So I have to like one of them is one stair at a time, not the whole staircase. Big thing for me is okay, if I tackle my top three things right now on this staircase or on the stair, I nobody can jump from the bottom of the staircase all the way up to the top, right? So if you can, like you're lying. If you say you can, I'm like calling you out, you're lying. But there's the one stair at a time. And I think that's the long game of evangelism too, is that you can't do everything when it comes to bridging this sales and marketing gap. You can do a few things that make big impacts with just showing up where your buyers are at, responding to bad messaging too, with, hey, there's a better way. Can I even help me? I mean, literally, I got on of a call earlier today with someone I met through Pavilion. They wanted to just, I don't know, one of the channels just said, hey, I'm trying to figure out how in the world to have this messaging resonate between all of our SDRs, which is a plethora of them. There's two leaders writing copy, and they don't know how in the world they're doing it. They're just blasting out, seeing what sticks. So our call is simply let's just talk about like how evangelism works and how there could be someone within your org who could be beneficial for that. And then it went into Reggie being an options. Then I set that up with one of our reps who can dive in even further for her use case. And then I think it's just helping. If you think of sales as helping, marketing is helping, and all is helping. Everybody's people at the end of the day. Be a human to other humans. Everybody puts their pants on the same way. Everybody, falls asleep without a title. You're just you. So no one, it's pretty wild how aggressive it can be. Sales and marketing alignment really not being aligned ever. And evangelism, I think, is that if done right.
Yeah, I think the if done right thing is key there. Like it sounds like, you take an authentic approach where you want to help first, and there's not this in the back of your head, okay, now is my time to pitch. Like now there goes the play stop.
Now I've got you where I want you kind of thing, right? Like,
Yeah. So I,
yeah.
I think I think that is the key as well, like genuinely wanting to help. And another thing you mentioned I thought was good was that long-term approach, which honestly is hard, right? Like salespeople have their goals, marketing has their goals. The economy is just strange right now. Like we don't know. It's been a
Weird.
rough couple quarters for a few people. So there's that, short-term mindset of need to hit goal, need to hit goal, need to hit goal. So how do
That's
you,
yours pushing down. Yeah.
yeah. So how do you balance that, especially in like an evangelism role where, like we said, it can be hard to attribute thing and make your case that this is a 12, 18, 24-month play.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So through a conversation, I did not know who I was even talking to at first. Someone had asked within a Slack community. They said, I am leading this organization and there have been a few changes. I didn't know the organization yet. I didn't know the details, didn't look her up yet, but I knew that I could help. Leading this organization, we have a ton of reps. We're global, looking for insights into where do our reps really get this content from? We're trying to create a content committee within, but we also need to know, is it a marketing person who is going to be handling this, or is it sales who's going to be handling this? Who handles where all of this copy is coming from? Where's your collateral living that people can, where your, one pagers or, use cases, all of that, that your salespeople can leverage? Where does it live that marketing create? And can they use it? Do they have access to it? And so understanding how that all can play into the aspect of, okay, how do we ensure that everybody has insights into best practices of how to actually move forward and move the needle and pushing forward in this economy? Because it is rough, it is weird, it is strange. And for a lot, it's been just terrible.
Mhm.
And the pressure, just as parents might put on their kids, as being, if they're stressed out, kids feel it. Leadership stressed out, reps feel it. And it's not an intentional thing, but it is what it is. And so having that use case of this long game works is, I was talking with the CRO and global CEO of Babbel, which is a massive organization. I had zero clue. I was talking to her, but she just needed to know if where all their collateral, everything that they have, if it should be kind of living more on the sales side, marketing side, who should have access, who should report to who, pretty much lay of the land. How in the world should we be doing our copy the right way between sales and marketing?
Mm.
So I was like, hey, let's talk shop, quote unquote. Let's use that term just because it's a good little sales terminology thing there. Let's talk shop. So we jump on a call and I'm looking her up and I'm getting all kind of my notes together before we chat. I'm like, holy, okay, wasn't prepared. I've been a Reggie 2 months. I'm not prepared for this one because you're way up here and I don't know enough about what I'm doing yet. So I like grab our president and CEO, Matt Millen, who is a wonderful human, brilliant as can be. He created with Manny, right, outreach to go to market motion over there at the very beginning. So he, CRO, and VP of sales with Tony Robbins. I mean, he knows, and side note, he was a professional race car driver. So that's just kind of cool. Um, but I had him jump on and help. And it was really neat to see how he shifted this into a, let me help you first and foremost, then let's like cover what these problems are. Then let's actually address the urgency as to why are we having this conversation. So asking and framing things with the right questions unveils so many things. So, but why are we having this conversation? Okay, because you shared this. But what if you don't get this done? What happens then? So that's the urgency portion on the sales side. For the marketing side, I think it's, here's what we can't, having things drafted out. Here's what, if all goes to plan, let's say 50% of this goes to plan, even 30, call it that, goes to plan. Here's what we're looking at in 6 months from now, from 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 3 years from now, whatever you want to call it. If CS does their job properly, if the sales follows up the right way, if evangelists show up and they actually are still continuing to have relationships that they establish first and foremost, and just saying, hey, checking in, hope you're well, that kind of thing. So the ROI is hard to prove right away. You can't necessarily do that. And that's the long game. And I think it's belief in people over revenue, as hard as that can be. Mm. But when leadership believes in the person and what they're able to bring to the table, knowing they've got a plethora of people, a network full of people who are also doing a lot of the same things, and where they're showing up is actually driving engagement. Numbers speak in that way, even if it's not just revenue. It's the ROI planting the seeds.
Yeah, I think it's a super cliche term, but it's like trusting the process, and
Right, right.
are you doing the right stuff to get to that point? And I think it's probably not easier from an execution perspective, but easier from a sell to leadership perspective when you're a newer, small-ish company, right? Like at Reggie now, you basically, I'm going to guess, is you want every sales and marketing person to know who you are. Like that is
Oh, yeah.
one of the major company goals, and this totally aligns with it. where,
Yeah.
big company making the shift from lead gen and like old school connect and sell, let's call a billion people.
Yeah.
It's so hard to sell that story that this is what's going to happen.
It totally is. For example, like Zoom had such an inbound motion that was like heavy, heavy, heavy
Mm,
when the pandemic hit because everyone's virtual. So they had inbound galore. They didn't set themselves up for an outbound process at all. So that's in the works right now, even for Zoom, which is crazy to think that large of an organization has the need for doing this outbound motion with reps actually reaching out and saying, don't use Google Meet, don't use this, don't use that. We stick with us, please, but teaching them how to do that from being on the other side of this inbound of, oh, you want this? Great, let's sign you up. So equipping and arming your reps to know how to do that from both angles. I think cross training is so important in that aspect, which is a big miss in a lot of organizations, especially even on the smaller scale, which I think that's where the learning happens. I mean, I was with a company, I won't say where, when, how, what, all that details, but I was with a company previously and I literally made myself stay 5 extra months because I was learning so much of the do nots
mm,
within an organization that it taught me so much more of what you should do within an organization. And I would jump in marketing conversations when I was not anywhere close to being in marketing. I would tell them things like, hey, we should try this because I just kept seeing what was working. And I'm like,
mm.
why are we not doing it? And so I created my own role, but then said organization because I was, you know what? I know where I provide value. So when you know who you are, what you bring to the table, I think that you could position things in a way to leadership, whether on the sales side, marketing side, and you have a network that is plentiful enough. It doesn't have to be this large, crazy network, but you are engaging with your content, that there's a really strong use case for why this gap needs to be bridged. And there needs to be somebody there who's a liaison, who is driving traffic in the right ways by being that human touch opposed to this solely AI or PLG motion or, you know, having only inbound or in totality having just somebody who's going to be there to help.
Yeah, it's interesting too, taking that proactive approach. If evangelism, for people listening, if it sounds like something that's interesting to you and your company is not doing it, maybe start taking some of those baby steps on your own, building your network, creating content, and then proactively planning to get there. Because it seems like most people I've talked to in this role kind of fell into it, right? Like a lot of them, it wasn't
Totally.
proactive. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, I'm thinking of where I started. I mean, I started SDR. I didn't even know what the acronym meant. I just knew I was single mommy of two little girls. And like, if I didn't get things done, things were not getting, I mean, were SOL. So you don't have a choice. And that goes into, okay, why are you doing what you're doing? You've got to have a reason for doing what you're doing. And evangelism, there's such a passion behind it if you want to do it. And passion drives people towards you. So, passion, energy, being someone that's likable, somebody who is fun to be around, right? Like they also can bring that EQ, IQ and can read you, can have a free flowing conversation, but also answer the questions that you have in an insightful way. And then hold your hand, guide you to where you need to go, where, say, it's the SE or, whoever it is that's going to be really diving into the sales cycle, figuring out, all right, how can I help you specifically? Why are we here? What else are you doing? Who are you targeting? Tell me about the team. Let's talk. Let's dive in. Just let's help you. So having alignment between the teams of knowing this is all helping in general is the biggest, one of the biggest factors for sure.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I think on the evangelism side too, you mentioned find out where your target market lives, which is 100%. Like, don't show up on LinkedIn if none of your audience is there. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Go find them, but
Yeah.
also find the right type of person. Like I'm going to go back to the cybersecurity example. I would
Mhm.
not be a good evangelist, right? Maybe personality type wise, or
Oh gosh, they would hate me, all of them. The cybersecurity people would be like, "Get this girl out of our world. Like, she knows nothing." They're like, "So are y'all guarded? Are y'all safe over there?" And they'd be, "What?" Would not go well. No, with you. But
yeah,
yeah, keep going. No, to your point, that's very true. Like going and speaking to them in their language too, where they're at.
yeah, and just finding the right person because like people, I think I hear evangelist, I think super outgoing, energetic, like I think salesperson, like
You think sales, right?
yeah. But just thinking about this further, yeah, it's not always the case. So like for people out there who find this interesting, you're passionate about a niche topic and like you could talk about it all day and you love networking there, like
Yeah.
go try being an evangelist in that industry. Like I think there's probably opportunities out there everywhere for this.
I think another thing to just tap into what you're saying is, like we were saying, we don't know what we don't know. So this is still, there's experts within this who are still figuring it out. You can call them
Yeah.
experts because they're ahead of where maybe I am right now. But some people might look at me saying I'm an expert in it when I'm still figuring it out. So I don't think any kind of learning's ever done with your role because one thing we know for certain, change is constant. So that was technology. AI is scary and we don't know what it's going to do, right? Like
Yeah.
it's great and it's like scary at the same time, like you said. So being able to be in the know with the industry knowledge and market trends and what people are doing and going in those dark social channels and hearing what's happening and answering people's questions and hey, I'm trying this and this. Like, what do people think? Here, I'll shoot you down. Let's chat. Great. Just help and just kind of guide. And big thing is that, when you do that, finding the right people too within the right places, if you can't help them, don't say you can help them. So that's the trustworthy portion of things is, you know, I'm going to point you in the direction of maybe somebody within my network who can guide you, because then you're going to see, okay, this is a good person. Your name's going to be tagged in certain places that you want it to be. The referrals come your way. There's a really good reputation built for people who are going to speak it the way it is. Hey, I don't think this is the solution for you, but what if you chat with this person? Let me make an intro. Easy. It's easy to do that because the ROI there, it comes back around if you just show up for others.
Yeah, so I definitely want to wrap there, and I think that is a good point to end on, right? It's like be authentic and be a
Yeah.
good person, and
Be
like
a
there's
good
obviously
human
more to it,
people.
but
Right. Totally.
yeah, that's a good chunk of it for sure. So, if our listeners, want to connect with you or learn more about Reggie, yeah, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I am all over LinkedIn galore. So find me on LinkedIn. I've got, DM me. I always am trying to get back to people just because that's part of this role that I am trying to establish. If you have insights on evangelism, if you have questions, let's talk shop about it because it is so important. It is the way the selling motion's going. Instagram, trying to build it up. Go follow me so I can build it up, please. And enlighten me on how to do it. TikTok, not there, so don't find me there. But feel free to reach out. I mean, I love hearing what people think, and even if it's feedback, I love to hear that.
Awesome, cool. So yeah, I'll include links to where to find you in the description. So yeah, hit her up if you have questions. But thank you for the conversation. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank y'all.